My fiancée cheated with 3 men at her bachelorette party. Her best friend filmed it all and sent it to me as a joke. But I exposed the videos to her parents, her job, and all her friends. Now she lives alone in misery, and her family disowned her. I'm 30 years old. I work in finance, and what happened a few months ago literally destroyed what I thought would be my life forever. Catherine and I met when we were 24, at one of those boring office parties where nobody wants to be, but everyone goes because, networking or whatever. She worked in the marketing department of a company that shared a building with mine, and honestly, at first she didn't really catch my attention, but we started talking, and there was something about her, an energy or, I don't know, something that made me want to get to know her more. We started dating like 2 weeks after meeting, and honestly, the first few years were incredible, like one of those relationships where you think you found your person, you know? We moved in together after 2 years, got a small but decent apartment near downtown, and basically built a life together, with routines and future plans and all those things couples do when they're in love. 6 years went by like that. 6 full years where I thought everything was fine, better than fine even. Sure, we had our fights like any couple, but nothing serious. Nothing that made me think even for a second that things weren't good between us. I proposed to her like a year and a half ago, on a trip we took to the coast. Nothing too elaborate but special, with a dinner on the beach and all that romantic stuff you're supposed to do. She said yes, obviously. We both cried a little. Yeah, I cried too. Don't judge me. And we started planning the wedding almost immediately. Catherine was super excited, obsessed with every detail, spent hours looking at dresses on Pinterest and talking to her mom, Helen, about flowers and centerpieces and all those things that honestly I didn't care about but pretended I did because it made her happy. The wedding was planned for late September, and everything was going according to plan until July came around. Catherine organized her bachelorette party for a whole weekend at a resort. Cabin like 2 hours outside the city, a fancy place with a spa and all that stuff. Her best friend Sierra was in charge of organizing everything, and honestly, Sierra never liked me. I always thought she was a bad influence, one of those friends who's constantly pushing you to do stupid things. But Catherine adored her, so I kept my mouth shut. The group was going to be like 8 girls, friends from college, work, cousins, the typical mix. I had my bachelor party 2 weeks before. We went to a baseball game, and then to a sports bar. Nothing fancy. We drank beer, watched the game, laughed at stupid stuff, and that was it. Boring for some, maybe. But I'm not one of those guys who needs strippers in Las Vegas to have a good time. Catherine left that Friday afternoon, super excited with her giant pink suitcase and like 3 more bags of stuff that, according to her, she absolutely needed for 2 days. She gave me a kiss, told me she loved me, and left in Sierra's car along with Danielle, another one of her friends. I stayed at the apartment, took advantage to watch games that Catherine hated, and ordered Chinese food straight from the container. You know, those things you do when your partner isn't around? The plan was for her to come back Sunday night, but it turns out she arrived Saturday like 11 in the morning because she needed to be home early for I don't know what thing. And I wasn't even there, because I had gone running and then stayed, having breakfast with a friend. I didn't think anything weird about it. She had a key, obviously, so I assumed she'd arrive, unpack, and see me when I got back. When I got to the apartment, like at 2 in the afternoon, Catherine was in the shower. I left my keys on the entrance table and saw a package, like one of those padded envelopes that certified mail uses, with Sierra's name written in marker on the front. It seemed weird to me, because normally Catherine received her packages directly at the office, or let me know if she was, expecting something important, but whatever. I thought it would be some bachelorette party gift, or some silly thing between friends. What did catch my attention was that the envelope was open, and I could see that inside there was a USB drive, one of those small, generic black ones they sell at any store. I don't know why, but something in my stomach felt weird, like a hunch or instinct or whatever you want to call it. I heard the shower was still running, so I grabbed the USB drive and went to my laptop in the study. I plugged it in, and there was a single folder that said, "For Joshua lol," with a crying, laughing emoji. My heart was already beating fast because, when something has your name on it and it's in a secret package your girlfriend receives from her friend who's never liked you, alarms automatically go off in your brain. I opened the folder, and there were like 15 video files, some 2 minutes long, others 5, one almost 20 minutes. The titles were things like Crazy Night Lol, Kath being Kath, This is Insane, those kinds of stupid names that don't tell you anything but at the same time tell you everything. I felt like I was going to throw up before even opening the first file, but obviously I opened it because I needed to know. Even though part of me already knew that whatever was in those videos was going to change everything. The first video started with Sierra's phone filming the cabin's living room. It looked super nice, with a fireplace, big sofas, dim lights, background music. You could hear the girls laughing and screaming. Clearly they were all already drunk, and then the camera moved and there was Catherine, my fiancée, sitting on the lap of a guy I'd never seen in my life, kissing him. Like not a drunk, silly kiss, but really kissing him, with tongue and hands on his face and everything. I could hear Sierra laughing behind the camera, saying things like, "Oh my God, Kath, Joshua is going to die, and this is the best thing I've ever seen." And the other girls were cheering her on, screaming and clapping like it was the best show in the world. I was frozen watching the screen, literally couldn't move a muscle. And the video continued, and Catherine kept kissing this guy, and then he started touching her, and she didn't stop him. And Sierra kept recording and laughing like it was the funniest thing on the planet. I closed that video and opened another, and this one was worse, much worse. Catherine was with two different guys now, one on each side, and she was kissing them alternately while Sierra narrated like she was a sports commentator. And now she goes with the blonde one. Oh wait, she's back with the dark-haired one. This is incredible, girls. Someone needs to stop her or not. Let's just keep recording. The other girls in the video were kind of out of frame, but you could hear them, some laughing, others saying things like, "Kath, calm down," but without really doing anything to stop her. I watched like 4 more videos, and each one was progressively worse. In one, Catherine was in a bedroom with one of the guys, the door half open, and although the video was from outside, you could hear everything. Absolutely everything. And Sierra was there recording, whispering, "This is pure gold. Joshua is going to lose his mind when he sees this, or maybe we don't show it to him, haha." I don't know how long I sat there watching those videos. Probably like an hour. Watching them all, some twice, because my brain couldn't process what I was seeing. In total, there were 3 different guys, 3 random strangers who apparently were at the resort, and Catherine had been with all 3, in different combinations, throughout Friday night. The other girls in the group appeared in some videos, but none were doing anything remotely similar. It was just Catherine, my Catherine, the woman I was going to marry in 2 months, the woman who had told me she loved me like 1,000 times, the woman I had planned to have children with and grow old together, behaving like someone I didn't know at all. What destroyed me most, looking back, wasn't just the fact that she had cheated on me, but the way she did it, the casualness with which she moved from one guy to another, the way she laughed and had fun while Sierra documented everything. The fact that she clearly wasn't so drunk that she didn't know what she was doing, because in the videos, she looked conscious, coherent, actively participating and enjoying it. And Sierra, that damn Sierra, recording everything like it was a fun home movie, sending me the videos like it was a joke, like the life I had built with Catherine for 6 years was a joke to her. I heard the shower turn off and knew Catherine would come out any moment. I closed the laptop, put the USB drive back in the envelope, and left it exactly where I had found it. I didn't say anything. I didn't do anything. I just sat on the couch and waited for her to come out of the bathroom. When she appeared with her pink robe and wet hair, all smiling, asking me how my morning was, I just told her, "Good. And your weekend?" with the most normal voice I could fake. She told me about the spa, about the fancy meals they had, about how pretty the place was, all lies or half-truths. It didn't even matter anymore. I just nodded and smiled, and inside I felt like someone had ripped my heart out of my chest and stomped on it. That night I didn't sleep. Catherine fell asleep like at 11, snoring softly as always, completely unaware that her world was about to collapse. I stayed awake until 4 in the morning, planning what to do, how to handle this, because part of me wanted to wake her up and scream at her and show her the videos and demand answers. But another part, the colder and more calculating part that I didn't know I had, told me there was a better way to do this. Sierra had sent those videos as mockery, as if I were an idiot who would never find out. And I was. I'm going to make sure that decision haunted both her and Catherine for the rest of their lives. Monday morning, I got up early, called work and said I was sick, and waited for Catherine to leave for her office. As soon as she left the apartment, I started packing my things. Not everything, just the essentials. Clothes, laptop, important documents, some sentimental things I didn't want to leave behind. I called a friend who had an empty apartment because he was traveling for work and asked if I could stay there for a few months. He said yes, without asking questions. He knew Catherine and probably sensed something serious had happened. I left my apartment keys on the kitchen table next to a note that said, only, I know everything. Nothing more, no explanations, no drama, just those 3 words. Then I called the place where we had booked for the wedding, a super expensive event hall that we had paid with a non-refundable deposit of like $8,000. I explained that I needed to cancel, made up some excuse about a family emergency, and although we lost the deposit, I didn't care. It was worth every penny not to have to deal with that. I blocked Catherine's number on my phone, blocked her social media, literally erased her from my digital life in a matter of hours. I made copies of all the videos from the USB drive on my own laptop and a backup USB because I knew I was going to need that evidence for what was coming next. Catherine started calling me like at 6 in the evening when she arrived at the apartment and saw the note. Obviously, I didn't answer. She sent me like 50 text messages that I never read because they were blocked. But Megan, a mutual friend, contacted me that night saying that Catherine was hysterical, that she had gone to her apartment crying and asking if she knew where I was, to please tell her what had happened. I told Megan she would know soon, to be patient. Tuesday, I went to a coffee shop on 7th Street, that hipster place that sells organic coffee at ridiculous prices, and I sent Sierra a message from a borrowed number from another friend. I told her I was Catherine's friend and that I needed to talk to her about something urgent related to the wedding. Sierra, being the charming person she is, agreed to meet me thinking it was some minor drama she could handle. When she arrived and saw me, her face changed completely, from confused to worried to trying to hide the panic in a matter of seconds. She sat across from me, and before she could say anything, I put my phone on the table and played one of the videos, low volume but clear enough for her to see and hear. Her face turned white. Literally all the blood disappeared from her face, and she started stammering something about it being just a joke, that everyone was drunk, that it didn't mean anything. I told her, very calmly because I had practiced this. You sent these videos to my door thinking it would be funny, thinking I would never see them, or that if I did it, would be your dirty little secret to laugh about with Catherine. Well, guess what, Sierra? I saw them. I have them all. And now all the people who matter in Catherine's life are going to see them too. Sierra tried to negotiate, told me to please not do anything rash, that Catherine loved me. He laughed in her face when she said that it had been a terrible mistake and that she was so sorry. I asked her if she felt bad enough to admit that it had been her who encouraged all of this, who filmed everything, who documented it like it was entertainment. She stayed quiet. I told her to leave, that I didn't want to see her again in my life, and to expect the consequences of her actions. She left crying. Probably ran to tell Catherine that she had seen me. But honestly, I didn't care at that point. 2 days later, on Thursday, I went to Catherine's parents' house. Helen and Paul lived in a conservative upper-class neighborhood like 30 minutes from downtown, one of those huge houses, with perfectly manicured lawn and 2 expensive cars in the driveway. They were traditional people, very religious, very strict with their family values, and they had always treated me well because they thought I was a good influence on their daughter. I knocked on the door and Helen opened. She was surprised to see me but invited me in, offered me coffee as always. Paul was in the living room reading the newspaper. He greeted me with a firm handshake, as was his custom. I told them I needed to show them something before they heard any version of events from someone else. I took out my laptop and, without saying another word, played 2 of the most explicit videos. Watching their faces change was devastating but necessary. Helen started crying like 30 seconds in. Paul became completely rigid. His face went from confused to angry to something I can only describe as absolute horror. When the videos ended, Helen couldn't even speak, just cried with her hands covering her mouth, and Paul closed the laptop abruptly and asked me, "Where is Catherine now?" I told him I had no idea, that I hadn't spoken to her since I left the apartment. Paul called Catherine immediately from his cell phone, put it on speaker. She answered with a voice that sounded like she'd been crying. "Dad?" And Paul just said, "Come to the house right now. Joshua is here. We need to talk." Catherine started to say something, but Paul hung up before she could finish. She arrived like in 20 minutes, ran through the front door, and when she saw me there, she tried to approach, but Paul literally stood between us and told her, "Sit down and don't say a word until I allow you to." I had never seen Paul like that, so furious, so cold. He showed Catherine the videos on the laptop, forcing her to watch them, while Helen cried on the couch, and I stood by the window without saying absolutely anything. Catherine tried to explain, said she was drunk, that Sierra had pressured her, that it was a horrible mistake, that she loved me, all the predictable script that probably anyone would say in that situation. Paul let her talk for like 2 minutes and then interrupted her. He told her, "I don't want to hear your excuses, Catherine. What I saw in those videos is my daughter behaving like someone who has no dignity, self-respect, or consideration for the man who loves her and was going to marry her. You shamed this family. You shamed yourself, and you destroyed your relationship for a night of stupid fun with strangers." Helen finally spoke, told Catherine she couldn't believe her own daughter was capable of something like this, that they had raised her better, that how dare she do this to Joshua after 6 years together. Catherine just cried and apologized over and over, but nobody in that room was interested in her apologies. Paul looked at me and said, "I'm sorry, Joshua. I really am. I thought my daughter was a better person than this." I thanked him for at least listening to the truth, and left there. I had nothing more to say or do in that house. Later that same day, Megan called me. She had managed to find my new number through I don't know who. She told me that Catherine had contacted her crying, that her parents had kicked her out of their house, that she had nowhere to stay, that she was desperate. I asked her what she expected me to do with that information, and Megan went quiet. I told her that if Catherine wanted someone to feel sorry for her, she probably should have thought about that before sleeping with 3 random guys while her fiancé waited at home planning their wedding. Megan said she understood my anger, but that maybe I was taking things too far. I told her I was just getting started, and hung up. During the following weeks, I made sure every person in our social circle knew exactly what had happened. Not in a dramatic way or sending the videos to everyone, that would have been in poor taste, but talking individually with our close friends, showing them selective evidence when necessary, answering questions honestly. Danielle, one of the girls who had been at the Bachelorette party, contacted me to apologize, said she had tried to stop Catherine, but that Sierra had convinced her not to interfere, that she felt terrible for not doing more. I told her I appreciated her honesty, but that her silent complicity also had consequences. Kevin, a mutual friend who had known both Catherine and me since college, told me that Catherine had called him asking to borrow money because she was having financial problems. I showed him some of the videos and his reaction was total shock. He told me, "Man, I had no idea it was that serious. She had told me you guys had just argued about something silly." I told him the full version, and Kevin promised me he wouldn't help her with anything. The situation between Catherine and Sierra also completely disintegrated. Megan told me they had a massive fight because Catherine blamed her for sending me the videos, saying that if Sierra had never done that, I would never have found out and everything would be fine. Sierra apparently responded that if she hadn't been a slut in the first place, there would be nothing to document. Their years-long friendship was destroyed in a matter of days, and Sierra ended up blocking Catherine from everything and refusing to talk to her. At Catherine's work, things also got ugly. Paul, her father, worked at the same company in a high position. I don't know exactly what, but it was important. Before the scandal, he had always been protecting her professionally, getting her good projects, speaking well of her with the superiors, basically making sure her career was successful. After seeing the videos, Paul apparently told her and her supervisors that he no longer wanted to have any kind of favoritism toward his daughter, that she would have to defend herself, and at the same time some rumors about what had happened started circulating in the office because, people gossip. Catherine ended up quitting like 3 weeks later because the situation became unbearable. Everyone looked at her weird, her co-workers avoided her, and without her father's protection, she had no way to hide. Since her parents kicked her out, Catherine had been sleeping on different friends' couches. None wanted to have her for more than a few days because she was a constant reminder of drama and bad decisions. Eventually, she had to rent a horrible apartment in the worst part of town, one of those places with mold stains on the walls and noisy neighbors and cockroaches, because it was the only thing she could afford with her limited savings and no stable job. One by one, all her friends abandoned her. Some because I showed them what kind of person she really was, others because they didn't want to be associated with the drama, others because they simply decided her actions were unforgivable. In the end, Catherine was completely alone, no friends, no family who wanted to talk to her, no partner, no decent job. I heard she got a part-time job at a coffee shop near her new apartment, earning minimum wage, serving coffee to strangers. Quite a dramatic fall considering she used to work in corporate marketing with a comfortable salary. I meanwhile moved to a new apartment, better than the one Catherine and I shared, in a quieter area. I took a few weeks off from work to process everything, went to therapy a few times because my boss suggested it, and honestly, it helped me organize my thoughts. It's not that I was depressed exactly, more angry, betrayed, but also strangely liberated. Like I could finally see that the relationship I thought we had was never as perfect as I believed. I started going out with friends more often, picked up hobbies I had abandoned, went back to the gym regularly, basically rebuilt my life without Catherine in it. A couple of months later, I started seeing someone new. A woman I met through work friends, someone completely different from Catherine in every possible way. I'm not saying I'm in love or anything that dramatic. It's too soon for that. But it's nice to be with someone who makes me feel valued and respected, someone I can trust. Helen tried to contact me like a month ago, sent me a long message asking me to consider forgiving Catherine, saying her daughter was destroyed and that maybe with time and therapy we could fix things. I responded in the most respectful way I could that there was nothing to fix, that Catherine made her choices and was now living with the consequences, and that I had already moved on with my life. Helen didn't respond after that. The last update I had about Catherine was 2 weeks ago, when Megan wrote to tell me she had seen her on the street and that she looked terrible, thin, with dark circles, clearly not taking care of herself. Megan asked me if that made me feel good, seeing Catherine destroyed like that, and I told her it didn't make me feel good or bad, that I simply didn't feel anything for her anymore. The person Catherine was, or who I thought Catherine was, died the day I saw those videos. The woman who remained after that was a stranger to me, and strangers don't deserve my empathy or my time. Sometimes I think about how things would have been if Sierra had never sent those videos, if I had never found out, if we had gotten married in September as planned. I probably would have lived deceived for years, maybe forever, building a life on a giant lie. In that sense, I guess I should thank Sierra for being stupid and malicious enough to document everything and send it to me, because at least she saved me from a marriage based on falsehood. I don't, obviously. She can rot too for what she did to me, but there's a strange irony in this whole situation that I can't ignore. People ask me if I'll ever forgive Catherine, if with time the anger will fade and I'll be able to see her as a human being who made a mistake instead of as the villain of my story. Honestly, I don't know. Maybe in 10 years, when all this is a distant memory, I'll be able to think about her without feeling anything. No anger or pain or satisfaction. But for now, at this moment, all I know is that I did the right thing by exposing her, making sure she faced the consequences of her actions, not letting her get away with a simple apology and a few tears. Catherine destroyed 6 years of my life with her decisions, destroyed my trust, my ability to believe in promises and future plans. I don't regret one bit having destroyed her life in return. Maybe that makes me a bad person. Maybe people reading this will think I went too far, that I should have been more compassionate, more forgiving. But they weren't there. They didn't see what I saw in those videos. They didn't feel what I felt when my entire world disintegrated in a matter of hours, so I really don't care what they think. I'm 30 years old, I work in finance, and the woman I was going to marry betrayed me in the worst possible way. She chose to sleep with 3 strangers at her bachelorette party while I planned our future together. I chose to make sure everyone knew what kind of person she really was. She lost everything. I got my life back. And that, honestly, is enough for me.